It is Monday, and this is Unblocked Live. There's an old adage that a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still tying its laces. Now, here we are 2 months after the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th, and it seems that we're still trying to parse the truth in many situations as to what happened, what it was like to be there, and figure out the facts. Well, today we have a very unique experience. We're going to air 2 hours of footage that was taped by a young photojournalist from North Carolina who was there at the DC Capitol on January the 6th, and he was wearing a helmet cam, and he'd let that camera roll for 2 hours without any edits. So you're going to get an experiential look of what it was like to be there at the Capitol like never seen before, because nobody could live stream. I was the only one who got out a live stream, but that was later in the 5 o'clock hour when most people had already been leaving. And this is another chance to watch a seamless clip of video. My guest is Stephen Horn today. This is Unblocked Live. And I'll bring Stephen right on in a second. Actually, here he is. Stephen Horn,
hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
This is Unblocked Live. Ladies and gentlemen, every Monday and Wednesday, we are live at 1 p.m. Pacific time. In this live stream, we are discussing social issues and civil unrest and everything you don't get from the mainstream establishment media. Now, the story of the Capitol continues. We're going to get an exclusive look at some new footage which hasn't been aired. This is Unblocked Live. Stephen Horn, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for getting in contact with me. You know, I don't know if people are going to know how we got in touch, so I might as well explain that it was through social media. There's a clip that I have presented on publicreport.org. If you have not seen it, you can check it out. This is youtube.com/unblockedlive. Please subscribe. Publicreport.org summarizes the last 9 months of my travels across the country, seeing civil unrest both on the left and the right. And I got an interview on January the 7th from a man who declared himself an extremist and said he had a role in agitating the media. And I'll show a little bit about that clip, that confession of sorts, the day after that I taped on January the 7th. But your footage has the same individual in the footage giving a speech, and you recognized that. Now, how had you come across my work, and how did you come to the decision to show us what it looks like for 2 hours, your footage from the Capitol, both outside and inside? How did you come to that decision?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I first saw you on Allison Morrow's show. I think that's when I first started looking into your work. You know, I saw some of your clips, the reporting you had done from the ground. So, you know, I had put this footage on the internet, you know, the day after, or maybe 2 days after. I guess, you know, when you come into contact, you know, you can see things that are in some corner of the internet that perhaps you hadn't seen before.
Now, were you surprised that, for example, that your footage was sitting there on the internet, in the corner of the internet, not getting viewed, and here you had 2 hours straight, uncut video of you not only at the outside the Capitol, but as a journalist going in to cover it? And what's remarkable is we have all this footage from the last year that is sitting there in corners of the internet and hasn't been seen before. So thank you for sharing this with us. Now, the first clip I'm going to play is you actually come across the incident where the man falls from up above. And I'm going to play that clip right away so people can set this up. This is a YouTube clip at the Capitol, January the 6th.
Oh, man. Well, he's going for it. Man, is that a gun? No! the fuck?
Now, you hear someone say after seeing that, we're going inside. And how early was this that you saw that man fall? This was not your video, but you
Yes.
were there.
Yeah, I did not see him fall, but I saw him taken away on a stretcher. So this would have been right around 2:00. So this is before any breach had been made into the Capitol.
That's interesting. When you put it in that timeline and you realize that moments like that can have a galvanizing effect on the crowd. And they can exacerbate situations from what I have seen city to city across this country. So when you put it in that context, that this happens before the breach, that certainly, and you hear at the end of the clip, someone says, we're going in. Now, I'm just trying to parse this information, folks. You should know that we are going to play this 2-hour clip. And just to set a couple other things up, you're going to see this man. Now, this is a man I interviewed on January the 7th. He told me he was a self-described extremist and said, quote, I don't have a problem with National Socialism. Let's hear a little bit from that interview.
We do matters. Nothing has changed. How do we change? What is something we can do to make a difference?
So let me ask you this. Is there some commonality when it comes to the Black Lives Matter, the people who feel disenfranchised on the other side?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The commonality is we are going to utilize their tactics in a Sun Tzu fashion at work and employ them for our use in our fight to return law and order to our country. Because when I left, I went out to the MSM compound.
Okay, actually, there's another part of the clip here, and I might as well play that for you. Here we go.
When I left, I went out to the MSM compound.
Yeah.
And I agitated the crap out of them and ran them all off. I got about 20 patriots with me, and we went into the news media compound. As I had my press gear on and everything, I was pressed.
What compound? Like in the Capitol?
No, and outside on the lawn. They had a gated-in press compound where they had the plates on the ground, you know, and all the cameras set up and everything.
Yeah.
I went in there and chased them all out. They're lying press, the Lungen press. They don't know what was going on.
Is that...
I was going to say, all of the footage that we took on there had already been disseminated to the public. So whatever thing of value they think they could get is nothing.
So it's interesting that this individual was willing to talk to me so directly about agitating the press and his beliefs. There are a lot of people that were very candid about why they were there, and we can talk about that as the clip rolls. You're going to see that individual at an open mic. Now, it's important to parse. It doesn't appear, and I might as well ask it now. The woman who's hosting the open mic, was it kind of thing where people can just jump on the open mic? And she didn't.
That it didn't seem that she really had a connection or knew on any of them. She basically invited anyone, to come say something.
This is one of the sort of conundrums of the free speech for anybody is you don't know who will be there. So you don't know if this guy who does say he's a National Socialist sympathizer will be the next person to grab the mic and be the one who is trying to get the crowd at least passionate, shall we say. We can characterize it as that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is we are going to see a couple of moments where you interact. And is there anything that you want to set up as to how do you deal with that, being a journalist, but also being in the scene? For example, we see someone who is hurt and you talk to them. In your mind, how do you make that differentiation as to, hey, I'm a journalist, I'm not an actor in this?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that I've put some thought to. I'm not sure I've come to a firm conclusion of what I think the role should be, but generally the idea would be not to interfere as much as possible. You certainly don't want to be making the story. You don't want to be agitating. But, if someone, there are a couple instances where it looked like someone was hurt, I asked them if they needed help. And there are also a couple instances where it was getting very heated. I sort of bodily put myself between some of the protesters and the police. And there's also an incident we'll see where a protester did get very upset with me after, we'll get into that. But basically, my opinion is try not to be the story, But at some point, if people are going to get hurt, there is a point where you step in.
Great. Now we're seeing the beginning of the clip here. You have come from the ellipse, and now flags, that had like a kind of crusader cross. It was a white-black flag with, in the canton is the upper left part. For example, there you see the stars and stripes. The stars are in the canton. That flag that we just saw, I noticed, had like kind of a crusader cross with a black and white flag. So these flags are, you're also going to see Asian country flags. You're going to see Trump flags there. Back the blue, upside down American flags. So there was a piece, I believe it was Quartz or something, did a piece on analyzing the flags January the 6th. And it was very interesting. And I think it was done in a fair manner, so to speak, because some flags are, come from internet subculture and alt-right culture.
Yeah, and then I guess that one thing to point out would be analyzing the flag is that, there were some, I believe, sort of extremist flags, a few of them. But like if you look at this clip, you can see there are a lot of flags. So, the most common one you see is the American flag, the Gadsden flag. You see a lot of those, and also some version of like a Trump flag that says Trump on it, maybe has his face. So there are a lot of flags, and I don't know, I guess maybe you can sort of miss that. If you just look at the most extreme flags, you might think they're more representative. I don't know.
Well, certainly
there's a lot of flags.
I agree with you. One point we've made previously is that the Trump flags are ubiquitous, and obviously that's the glue that holds a lot of this together. The Gadsden flag you mentioned, that's "Don't Tread on Me." You do see that. Do you interpret that as more libertarian? I'm just curious from different. That's all how I've always viewed it, but I'm curious from your perspective. We come from different sides of the country. I'm from California, from the Northern California specifically, and you're from North Carolina. So, as expected, I think it's fair to describe me left of center, and you, whether it's politically or even just culturally, right of center. So how do you, when you see the Gadsden flag, for example, how would you explain that to someone from California like me who's just like, is that a libertarian flag?
Yeah. So it would be sort of usually libertarian leaning or liberty leaning, not usually libertarian like the party, because libertarian like the party isn't really much of a thing. I sort of hate to say it. But yeah,
wow,
so it's
we might get some reactions on that one.
Yeah, I think if you looked at this crowd, you would probably find very few Libertarian Party members.
Wait, sorry, I just want to interrupt for a second because.
So if you do see that green fence on the ground, that had signs saying area closed. So I'm pretty sure anyone who walked over that fence could be charged with at least a misdemeanor. And as you can see, there are a lot of people on the other side of the fence.
Well, yeah, and I've always described this crowd as sort of, now this is earlier than when I arrived. There's a fuck Biden flag. There's when I arrived, it was a lot more dense than this. You're there much earlier than I was. Now, your timestamp on the video is not accurate, correct?
Yeah, I believe it's closer to being from the beginning of the video, not from when it starts. So at about 2 hours. So it's about somewhere around 2:10.
So it's 2:10. It's not 12:10.
Yeah.
As the timestamp indicates. So we know that it was just before 1 p.m. when the first barricades were moved. I think it was 12:53 p.m. was the timestamp. And the New York Times has worked actually in conjunction with Elijah Schaefer of The Blaze was one of the first people who was videographing at about 12:53, and his video was used for the New York Times investigation, which sort of rolls out how this all progresses. And I might as well say it now. We're going to see Elijah Schaffer as you are entering the Capitol, and he will say something. And I do have a statement from him. He is somebody who I have seen, I would say, on 2 or 3 occasions, both in the Pacific Northwest and in Washington, D.C. When you cover these things, you do see the same people. Now, before I talk about that, I'm going to give everybody the Pokemon warning right now, which is I don't know if you remember that story when back in the day kids were fainting from watching Pokemon. You had mentioned that since this camera is on your helmet, this can create a dizzying effect to be watching this video.
Yeah, and I will mention sort of before the video started rolling, sort of when I was walking to the Capitol, I heard someone say over a megaphone, they breached the Capitol basically. And, I don't think I was even inside of the Capitol at that point. I thought it was nonsense. You probably experienced this. Sometimes you're in crowds, things get spread around that aren't true. But I'm guessing that was based on Elijah Schaffer's reporting, because I believe he got a tweet out pretty quick. So.
Actually, that tweet I saw, and as I was, because I'm at this point, I think I'm looking for parking, to be quite honest. If this is like 2:15, I'm deciding ultimately at this point to leave my car. Now you're moving much quicker than I did, because you're not going through the crowd. You went around.
So this wall you see here, somewhere on there is where the guy gets pushed or falls off. It might be a matter of interpretation to some, but it looked to me in the video like he was pushed. I did not see it in person once again. But we are going to see the person on a stretcher.
Has that happened yet?
It probably is happening like right now in the video, or shortly before.
Okay, so you didn't realize that it was the guy who had fallen until he comes by on the stretcher?
I mean, I was not aware that someone had fallen until I saw him on the stretcher. Someone said, I think someone said he broke his legs or something like that. Someone who was looking at him, one of the protesters. So it's possible it's a couple minutes before. I don't think it was that long, because I do see them carry him away. So I was not aware, so I found it later.
What is this that we're seeing here?
I'm guessing that's some sort of pole that was set up for the whatever they're planning with the scaffolding and stuff. Maybe those are lights on it. I don't know.
Okay. Now, you also pan down to an empty hatch there, an underground tunnel.
Yeah, if someone was saying, there's a tunnel here, so I was like, there's a tunnel, and I look, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that tunnel does not go anywhere. It looked more like a storm drain sort of set up to me.
Okay. Now, at this point, you see the white cloth that's there. They're starting to rip it down, because the white cloth there covers the scaffolding for the inauguration. So you don't.
Yeah. So this flat part, sort of between the two angle section of the stairway that you see glimpses of, I believe that's where the person fell from. No, it'll be at the bottom of it.
That guy was in black block, and this.
So you can see that. Yeah. It's sort of hard to tell, but these people right here, they're over the guy who fell. I guess it's sort of hard to see in the video, but there's a piece of...
Let's listen in. So we're hearing flashbangs there. It sounded like. Am I correct?
Yeah. It was either flashbangs or tear gas deployment. Okay. I'm not sure which, because there was gas visible at some points.
And this is
out here.
This is about 2:15 p.m. now. And they're yelling, "Traitors will hang," I think someone said. Now, yeah. Someone's throwing a cone.
Yeah, so you're going to see quite a few projectiles thrown. Something that looks like a boat propeller. And you can see the police start retreating up the stairs. So that was why I was saying in the video, because it seems to me like there might have been some connection there between the person being injured and people throwing stuff and the police retreating.
Now, a comment came on that was a Knights Templar flag that we saw previously, and one of the many designs that are out there. So obviously that harkens to the Crusades, Western culture, Christianity. That is what that flag was. We're going to see a flag that has some Germanic letters on it, which always worries me. She always say, and that's going to come right as you're entering the Capitol. There'll be a flag that's on the ground, and I'm curious if you.
Yeah, I don't think I noticed it.
Okay, I'll point it out. But as this is playing out, so we had seen the guy on the ground that had been pushed off by police, and I think maybe that has not been explored as to how much that was a galvanizing event for this crowd. The police pushed him in.
I mean, I would like to interview someone who is there. One of the people, a protester, a rioter, however you want to term them, and see what their mindset is. But I'm not sure you'll get much now with all the people basically going to jail.
Well, it'll be interesting if people are more willing to talk as time goes on and tell the story from this first person point of view, because as you can see, it's going to get heated, and we know.
Yeah.
But this experiential look from a point of view, just like I was being there. And here's another question. You're not going to see guns. In my opinion, did you see guns?
I did not see any guns. I did see a baton. It looked like something that had probably been taken from the police. Maybe a police shield or two. You do see just in a bit someone's going to offer bricks from out of one of these planners.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So this is very reminiscent of...
Yes, there's someone with bricks. I believe that was him saying anybody.
Oh.
They're referring to the bricks.
Yeah. Just one or a lot.
I think there is 3. But no one took him up on it that I could tell.
No one took him up.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that's like the guy with the baton.
Yeah. There you go.
Which, I mean, some people, like if someone was dressed in full tactical kit and had a baton, I would be like, they probably brought it with them. Someone just in normal clothes with a baton, it's likely they picked it up from the police.
True. Yeah.
So like when those police from the stairway retreated, that was the last line. People went straight up that stairway to, inside where this door is.
Okay, so now you're up top, towards the terrace.
Yeah, so I'm standing on the railing of the terrace.
Okay.
You can see there's quite a few people up there already, and I'm pretty sure all of those came up that stairwell.
Well, you made quick time out of that, because look at the timestamp now is 20, and I mean you got there much quicker. Just me getting there a half hour or so after you, and trying to go through the middle, you went around and you made very good time.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the videos from sort of the center of that side, I believe this is the west side of the Capitol. So correct, the center, like where the bottom of the stairs were, and where it seemed like most of the police were. I mean, some of that fighting was nasty. But as you can see, like so far, I saw people throw stuff. I saw some tear gas down there. But so far, like I hadn't seen much violence.
Let's listen.
People brawling.
Let's listen in. You're going to hear Elijah Schaefer sort of giving people a one.
Hey guys, they have the right. By the way, I work in Congress here. They have the right to use lethal rounds once we're in. They have the right to use lethal rounds. Just keeping you aware. Keeping you aware. They now have the right to Don't run!
So you can see some of those bangs sound like stuff falling over. Some of them sound more like explosions. I can't tell you exactly what they were. But I got out of there for a couple minutes after you hear, oh, they're using lethal rounds, then you hear some bangs. I wasn't sure what was going to go on, so I stepped out for a bit.
Now here's that flag that had the Germanic letters that I have no idea what it is. If anybody else knows, please chime in. This guy's just chilling. But yeah, if anybody knows what that flag is, I'd be curious. That was just lying there on the ground. Now here's a statement. I spoke briefly with Elijah, who you heard giving a warning, and he said, I was genuinely scared for my own life. As people are going in, what if people light us up? I don't want anyone to get shot at any event. People weren't thinking, didn't realize the severity. So I think maybe you had that exact same thought because you ducked away for a couple minutes there.
Yeah, and I mean, someone did end up getting shot, but it was much further into the Capitol.
Right, and I think that happens within 20 minutes of where we are now, if I'm correct. That happens further in.
Yeah, I heard about it probably, I want to say about an hour, maybe 40 minutes to an hour later. It had sort of disseminated to people who weren't in the same area, but were in the Capitol. So I'm not sure exactly when it happened relative to where I was.
So we have a question up here about the man saying they have a right to use lethal rounds. Yeah, again, that is a reporter who said that. And he told me in the statement I just read that he was worried that people were going in and what if they get lit up, so to speak. So. It's when you're in this situation, I mean, as you just showed us, you know, it was a scary situation. You ducked away for a couple of minutes, and now you're back in, and this is entering the rotunda.
Yeah, so this... Yeah. Yes, there's a sign. Yeah, I know it's sort of interesting. Some people... you know, there have been some rumors about like people knowing the plans. The people I was following did not seem like they were aware of the layout. They just seemed to be wandering around.
Let's listen in.
Now you're just about to see a fire extinguisher fly over my head towards the police.
Wow.
So you just saw it fly there.
So that was a fire extinguisher.
Yeah. So yeah, this was definitely, well, this was like the most intense part in terms of violence.
And we're going to see a little conflict coming up, right?
Yeah. So what happened was I saw this guy with a flag. It was an American flag, had an eagle on top. It looked like something he had grabbed out of the hallway. And I saw he was sort of approaching the officers in an aggressive way. So I grabbed the end of the flag and it broke off like the eagle. And he got very angry at me. But we'll actually encounter him again later in the video. And I'll explain some more then. I don't know how much you'll be able to see.
So you're saying you were trying to stop him from using it?
Yeah, he was basically a couple people away from the police officer, and he was sort of pushing through the crowd. And he sort of had a look in his eyes. It's hard to describe.
Wow.
Like, as you can see, a lot of people had cameras, actually. I did not expect that going in, because I've filmed it at left-wing riots where cameras are definitely forbidden. But these people, not the same sort of rules, I guess.
Now, because the camera is on your helmet, we're getting great footage of the ceiling.
Yeah, and it was also I didn't have the angle quite adjusted properly.
Yeah.
Don't stab anyone! Don't stab anyone!
Yeah, so that's me talking to him.
Oh, there's the.
And you
Yeah.
made a false judgment by breaking the law. That's wrong. You messed up, brother. You messed up.
Hey!
Get off, knock it off, knock it off, knock it off.
Let go!
What's going on?
All good. All good.
Yeah, so I think sort of while I was having that confrontation or whatever, they were basically able to break through the police line that had formed in the basement of the rotunda here. So the police had been holding them back.
From now on, you understand me? You're going to get yourself in big trouble.
Yeah, so that was him talking to me.
I didn't touch you. Listen to him, man. Don't start stuff that you can't finish.
Breaking people's stuff. You damage my property. I should bust you up.
Sorry, dude. Stop.
Where would you like if I broke your glasses?
No, sir.
All right then. You don't break anything alive.
I just noticed that somebody mistook, because the show is called Unblocked Live. They were they thought that the wait, is this now? No, I'm glad we have the date up above, which is January the 6th, 2021. And that we're not. I'm glad that we're not having a replay in real life. This is a replay online only. Online only.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here. This is our house.
So this is our house. You hear it again. So explain to me again. We saw the eagle, the golden eagle of that, just like that. Right?
Yeah, it looked exactly like that.
And you accidentally broke the eagle off? Is that what
Yeah,
happened?
I grabbed the end of his flag as he was sort of, moving towards the police officers, and it broke off. And so afterwards, I sort of realized, that probably was not a flag that he took from the hallway, since it broke so when I ran into him later, which we'll also see, I offered to replace the flag I had broke. And then, he introduced himself, gave me a hug. It was a strange encounter.
Huh.
But we'll see that later.
Someone just said.
Yeah, so you can see someone, that guy there, he was hitting like a display with like a rod of some sort, and basically everyone around him was like, yeah, you can see a little damage here. Everyone was like, hey, don't do that. Like, it was sort of interesting. Yeah, so you can see that the crowd is moving. Obviously, whatever police line was holding them back was pushed through or forced out of the way. So actually here it was sort of interesting. There were a couple police officers who were, separated from the line that was holding the crowd back, and they're sort of shuffled off to the side here, and some people were like, hey, don't mess with them. Because there's sort of the competing, like, we're attacking the police officers because they're in our way, but also, we're law and order people. We support police officers. There's multiple instances where you sort of saw that in collision. So yeah, those are the police officers that have sort of been shuffled off to the side.
There's a flag again with the same kind of letters. I don't know.
Now, are you sure they're Germanic letters? Because it just getting a glimpse of it there almost reminded me of some of those like stylized like "We the People" lettering. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard
No pushing.
Yeah, so people were sort of getting squeezed together. I mean, that's one thing that can happen with crowds, is if the people from the back are pushing the people in front, it doesn't matter if they don't want to go forward, they're going forward. Especially when you have sort of bottlenecks like that.
Yeah, and you have a good clip from your cell phone that'll show that a little bit more.
Yeah.
How quickly everything there can be stasis, and then all of a sudden, if there are people pushing from the back, all of a sudden it just bottlenecks and you get a complete charge.
Yeah, so I believe from here to the door of the Chamber of the House of Representatives, there wasn't any police line blocking the crowd.
Someone just commented, I think it's notable how little vandalism takes place. Do you agree with that?
That's definitely an argument against like it being all secretly Antifa. Like I don't think if they were far leftists actually disguised as Trump supporters, I don't think they could have resisted the opportunity to knock over some statues or maybe destroy some priceless paintings. So yeah, there was not much vandalism I saw. I think I did see a couple of broken mirrors in Pelosi's office. But besides that, yeah, it was a bit notable compared to other riots.
Now I will go in the 5 o'clock hour, and the group that I was with was destroying the offices because they were trying to build a barricade out of furniture.
Interesting.
So they were a very specific fringe group that was led by a guy with a grizzly long beard who walked up to me and said, "Are you live streaming?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You want the story of your life? Come with me." And I was like, "All right." So the group that I was in the congressional offices. This is now some part of the rotunda.
We are still on the basement level, I believe. Okay. So that round room that we were in for a while, that is the basement of the rotunda. What? So those pillars sort of hold up the rotunda, and we're going to go up the stairs pretty soon and go through the actual rotunda.
So again, you had stated that it didn't seem people really knew where they were going.
No, not the people I was with. So I was never near like the front. I mean, I guess maybe by the time we got to the House of Representatives, sort of that door. But yeah, it's so there might have been people at the front who had some idea where they're going, but most of the people I was with just seemed like they were going with the flow, sort of didn't really know where they were going. Yeah, so here people are going up the stairs to sort of the main level. So on the east side of the Capitol, which is the opposite side we entered from, the entrance is a level up. So sort of the entrances from the west side are on the ground floor. Entrances on the east side are on sort of the second floor, where like the rotunda is. Yeah, so this is the rotunda.
Is this where they had, there was that one picture of like
the people inside the velvet ropes?
Yeah, the velvet ropes.
Yeah, that was either here, I believe, or in the National Statuary Hall, which we also walked through. So you can see all these statues here, all these paintings, they're right there. If this was, Antifa, they would have destroyed something, surely. These are all Trump supporters as far as I can tell, except for a few outliers like, was it James Sullivan? John Sullivan.
Yeah, in other clips, you kind of see you can see that there is kind of a unifying character to the crowd. Okay, here we go. It's not, someone says it's not Germanic. It's Old English font, like the first one. Some custom phrase printed on an American flag, a common practice for Second Amendment groups. Great, thank you. Thank you so much for clearing that up.
Yeah, so this is the National Statuary Hall, which has a lot of statues, sort of right there in the name. But yeah, you can see people like weren't messing with the statues.
Is that a Native American statue?
Possibly. I think each state sends two, which the state decides, who they have out there.
So a big issue for me in the coverage, just journalistically, one of the hardest things to figure out, and that I think the press has done a horrible job at, is in determining what the quote-unquote white supremacy quotient is, or how do you, how can you even measure that? Because you see me in how I look at this video. I'm like, is that Germanic letters? Is that, that's a cross? And, I'm looking into every single symbol trying to find the one white supremacist, and we know that there are people who engage online, whether it's as, one way.
So, let me just make a note about what's happening here. You can see people sort of gesturing down with their hands. They're trying to get people to quiet so they can sort of decide what they're going to do, or maybe let someone speak who knows what's going on. I don't think it really happened. So you can see there was some attempt to organize, but I don't think it really, happened, that they were able to communicate effectively.
I'm sorry I broke your flag. Hey,
yeah, so I see this same guy.
It was your flag. I'm sorry.
Thank you. What's your name? Steven. My name is Hayar.
Hayar?
Yes, Hayar.
Okay.
Do you know that your name is a Hebrew name.
I thought it was Greek from
Yeah.
the first martyr.
Right, Stephen. But he was a Hebrew by conversion. Yes, sir. Listen, man, I love you. I appreciate you. This is not necessary.
Are
It's
you
okay.
sure? I broke your flag.
What you said to me is enough. It'll 1,000 lifetimes.
Thank you.
1,000 lifetimes, Stephen. All right, let's go in together. How about that?
Now we're hearing things heat up. It sounds like.
Yeah, so the door to the House of Representatives, I believe it's the House, I may be getting the size confused, but it's like right there, like about 15 or 20 feet away from where I was standing. And I think we'll see that in a little bit.
The door to the House of Representatives. Or something.
Yeah, so like the actual entrance to the chamber. Yeah, so you can see it sort of there on the other side of the chandelier. Like that's the door. On the other side of that are quite possibly still representatives. They're congressmen.
Well, everybody does seem unified in their, and I said this before, in their belief that, with that the Stop the Steal slogan is ubiquitous and certainly the dominant rallying cry.
Yeah, and the whose house, our house, probably the most common chant. But yeah, it's sort of definitely unified in that. Yeah, so it's hard to see because it was sort of crowded, but there's this hallway that we're in where you can sort of see the long hallway, and then there's that sort of entrance there. So there's a little sort of chamber there, just like a little square box basically, and they're trying to get into the door on the other side of that chamber, which is the door to the House of Representatives. So it was pretty packed tight in there. I don't think they were able to breach that door. I think it was barricaded and possibly had agents with guns on the other side. So right here, this is interesting. Right, it's not right there. But I looked out the window and I saw like a little plaza there, and it looked like there are hundreds of police officers standing there, like doing nothing, which surprised me at the time. It sort of still surprises me now. I think we're going to get a clear shot of it. I'll go out to the window again. It was sort of interesting. There are a couple of police officers sort of standing off to the side in this hallway, basically not doing anything. Yeah, I can see people are trying to pile into the little room.
There's so many cameras. There's so much footage of this that is probably not, unseen.
Probably
just
on the
sitting.
FBI's hard drive.
Yeah. There's so much. But you know what? So you hear someone saying, "Come on, let's go. What the fuck?" Was there the feeling there were definite people who were sort of rabble rousers, cheerleaders, or
it didn't really feel like there were people whose, like there were certainly people shouting stuff, but I'm not sure there are people, it seemed like, whose energy level was vastly different than the rest of the crowd. So there were people yelling things, but it more felt like that was the energy of the crowd. It wasn't like people were just like, oh, we're not doing anything, and then one person is trying to get them to do stuff. It was more like the whole crowd had the energy. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. And when the crowd that I was with too, I felt that I think maybe there were one or two people who were very active, but the sentiment and the momentum was propelled by the group entire.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really much opportunities for people to sort of, give little speeches at least that I saw, until I got outside. Then there were people on a mic or whatever. But in here, it wasn't like there were people like giving speeches to psych them up or rile them up. I don't remember seeing anything like that. Now, someone asked a question. Would Steven speculate what he thinks the rioters would have done should they have made contact with representatives? I don't know. I mean, there were people chanting things like "Hang Mike Pence." I honestly don't know. It's very possible that they would have killed or severely injured certain representatives, maybe, had they run into them. One thing I will say is I'm not sure the Republican representatives would have fared any better than the Democratic representative, which is what some people have at least implied, that, the crowd was a danger to the Democrats, but not the Republicans. And here's what I was talking about. You can see a bunch of officers sort of standing around. So when I saw that, I was like, maybe they dispersed everyone and these people inside just, they haven't got around to them. But then when I made it back outside, or actually when I saw it on a television, it was live, and it's like, nope, there's still a huge crowd, but those police officers were just not doing anything. So I don't know what the deal was there.
Well, I would assume that when you're overwhelmed, that there's no playbook, or if there is, certainly operationally getting it out to everybody, hey, what are we doing next? Because in about an hour, I think, is when the Virginia State Police come. And
I think the FBI came at some point and sort of cleared out the cleared the rooms. I don't think there are many people left. But yeah, you can see briefly there are a couple police officers just sort of standing and watching. Not really much 3 police officers can do with this whole crowd trying to bust in.
How do they end up getting the people out from this part?
They deployed a lot of chemical weapons. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was
CS
spicy.
Gas. Yeah, CS gas or some
yeah,
sort
I
of...
mean, in a minute here, you'll see basically there was so much gas, you couldn't see like 20 feet down the hallway.
I mean, operationally, they're probably trying to figure out, how do we get these people out? What tactics can we use without, creating a stampede? Which they do create a stampede, because eventually, I know one instance of a woman who was, fell amid the stampede.
Yeah, I think that was outside when they were trying to get in.
Yeah, you could see the police there just standing there in the background.
Yeah, and like a protester or someone there gave one of them like a bottle of water. So yeah, it was just sort of an odd dynamic. There were a lot of police officers assaulted, but it was sort of interesting. I don't think I saw any assaulted who weren't in the way. No. There wasn't gratuitous violence for violence's sake against the police officers. It was, I don't know what to make of it. Yeah, so that person there is telling me that someone has been shot, or shots were fired, I guess.
And she said, I don't know if I believe it.
Yeah.
They all went out in a tunnel, which I do believe. True.
Yeah, so rumors were sort of making their way through at that point.
Well, I was going to remark, by now, if it is 2:50, then in the last 10 minutes is when Ashley Babbitt had been shot and killed, I believe. And so it would make sense that the police are standing down.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know how much communication there was between the police officers. I guess you can see that guy has a Los Angeles Times helmet.
LA Times?
Yeah, I think that's what it said on the back of that white helmet.
I'll have to look at it. Someone says, looks like they were establishing a perimeter to keep anyone else out. Plus, it's hard to reason with the mob. Yeah, I mean, this is, again, as I said, there's no playbook, or at least that officers have been completely briefed with. And
Yeah, I mean, so I think here the people sort of inside the little entrance room, at one point they were like trying to get people to back out some so they could try to like kick down the door. But their efforts to break in were not successful. Fortunately for them as well as for the people inside, because
Right.
I believe there were agents with guns right on the other side of that door.
Right. And, somebody had asked, do you dare to speculate what would have happened had the mob encountered a member of Congress and so forth? And I think that ultimately, I can't remember who said it in a podcast, but, we taking that chance of a elected representative having to face a mob like that, you don't know, what the mob would be capable when coming face to face with their adversary, because the mob is always influenced by their worst actor. So it really depends if you have somebody in there that is psychologically unhinged or
There you see the gas starting to come out.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what I've noticed when it comes to the madness that inflicts a mob is that it really comes down to sometimes one person's personality. One person can have great influence in escalating chaos. And so that really, and I've talked to many people who say, that really they understand why lethal rounds were deployed, because
I was sort of surprised that more lethal rounds were not deployed.
This could have been, for all of its large scale chaos, and could have been even worse, of course. Now you're in, what room is this? Everything's quieted down.
So this is back into the National Statuary Hall, which is sort of between the rotunda and the House of Representatives.
And let's just listen to the vault. It's quieted down because people are covering their mouths, yeah?
And I think the crowd had thinned out some. I think they had some of them had spread into various rooms. So you can see here, like some police officers, when they're making their way through this crowd at least, there weren't people in the crowd being like, hey, get those police officers that are walking through. So it was just strange, the dynamic.
Yeah,
like people attacking police officers 1 minute, not attacking them the next.
Well, because they were, and that's an interesting point. They were attacking when they were impediments, but if they weren't impediments, then they weren't attacking police officers.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. So right here in this chamber, there's, I don't think you can see it, but there's a police officer at the top of the stairs, and you can see like there's a couple oath keepers sort of standing around. That police officer, I believe he had a rifle, and he looked very agitated, like he was about to start shooting. And so these like 3 or so, I believe they're oath keepers. They're in like the military gear. They're sort of like keeping the crowd back. They could sort of see what was going on.
Is that live? Or 249?
Okay, so the audio here.
One of the windows I just saw.
Yeah, the audio here got very off.
If they had driven everyone out, or if that was a.
The audio is a couple minutes off at this point. This is in Pelosi's office.
Oh.
Or well, this is office next to hers. I know the next one is hers. I'm not sure if this one is hers or not. Like, I know certainly.
That's
like,
the guy. That's the guy. He got arrested for that.
Yeah. Like, so this is when I saw, like, there's a live shot of the crowd outside, and I was like, oh, the police outside. They're outside, but then there's still this huge crowd here.
Office? This is a medal to her. Okay, well, even so, don't break it.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a broken mirror there.
You said don't break it.
Yeah.
You're a very
Don't break the office.
don't break the office.
Yeah.
Your Boy Scout sensibilities were showing through. That was really interesting to see. That guy who so famously took a selfie of himself was taking the. Oh shoot! Sorry, wrong button. Did I just go forward or back?
I think we're back where we were.
Oh,
Are we entering the office again?
House Democrats.
I think it's sort of like a suite, so I think we're maybe moving through to a different room in the offices. Okay, like yeah, that was like a little. Okay, now I think the audio is synced back up. I'm not sure what happened with that one part.
Well, that's you saying don't break it again.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's the same. I'm not sure how the audio there got messed up,
Okay,
but
gotcha. And who was that guy to the left? He was just standing there.
I don't know. I didn't notice him at the time. There are these flags sitting here that were like draped onto the floor. So being the patriotic American that I am, I naturally picked them up and leaned them against the wall.
Okay. Now, was there a moment here where obviously you're there as a journalist, you're filming, but when you went into the office, or what were your feelings at this point?
I was just documenting what was going on. I've been a few protests, maybe quite a few, where I'm protesting for something, and this is not the type of protest I go to for a cause I believe in. I don't think there's any point where I was like, yeah, let's go, guys, this is great, because it was just so alien. So I was just documenting it.
Just taking it in. Now this is back in the rotunda, or that's an oath keeper there on the left?
Yeah, I believe this is the edge of the road. Yeah, this is the rotunda. So the rotunda, it seemed like it was sort of a gathering spot. Some of the people who had moved through previously sort of came back and were gathering here.
I see. Someone said that white helmet before was LA Times printed on it with their standard masthead and a helmet cam on it. Huh. That sounded like just a basic megaphone siren.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Nothing. Though you wonder why, if there are, maybe it's connected to the sprinkler system. You know how when like strobe lights or anything.
Yeah, so there are some people here, I believe there's like that one officer at the top of the stairs with sort of the oath keepers protecting him. I think maybe another police officer should get there, but there are people just yelling at him, antagonizing him for whatever reason.
Bully with a badge! Bully with a badge! I got picked on in high school! Oh, bitch!
So I'm not sure what if that police officer did something to that the people were especially mad about. I just sort of walked by at twice or something, and there was stuff going on.
I've got a website called DCUnderSiege.com. I want everybody here in about a few days to get on there. It's not up and live right now. But we're going to be organizing patriots to come back up here and get these people lined out. Okay? DCUnderSiege.com.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I went to the website later. Nothing there.
Nothing there.
So
I'm gonna check it right now on my phone.
Yeah.
Again, it's just so amazing how candid people not wearing masks, just walking right by. How candid and out in the open they were about, being there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like the website. It looks like the website isn't even owned because it says you can still get the domain.
Yeah, so I don't know what that guy's deal was.
Oh, actually, it says the domain is taken, but you might be able to get it for $100. Is what it says.
Yeah.
This is an interesting comment. Commenter says, I've been in a lot of demos inside of our state capitol. This ain't no insurrection, barely a riot, with the exception of breaking the glass to enter. Well, once you get in, yeah, I mean, once you've entered, but the rioting and the insurrecting was necessary to get to this point where everybody's just milling about.
Yeah. I mean, when I was under, like, in the basement of the rotunda, there was a lot of fighting that was going on there. The police line, they violently broke through that police line. Yeah. I mean, there's some other videos from other journalists, like, capturing the actual fighting.
Yeah.
Should have looked at the floor plans before we came.
Should have looked at the floor.
Yeah, because I was lost. I did not know where I was.
I mean,
I think what he was saying, he might have been mentioning the exit, and it's like, yeah, I do not know where the exit is.
Well, again, the media just jumped on this and tried to say, oh, they knew, and they actually took my video of.
You okay? Yeah, my neck is just burning like crazy.
Yeah, I think that guy got pepper sprayed or something.
But I didn't get it too bad. It just on my neck. It's burning. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, so I think this guy in the green hat here is about to pass out some marijuana.
Oh, I think one of the journalists got a picture of him. I think it was Richie McGinnis got a picture of some of these guys lighting up token in the Capitol. Yep. They're just lighting up. Got a Q shirt on. Yeah, and again, if you look at video from Richie McGinnis, from Brendan, BG on the scene, you'll see the heat of it when police lines were being pushed through. And Elijah Schaefer shows in his video, which I mentioned earlier, that was about 12:53 p.m. when they go through the first barricades. So as much speculation is coming out, I think what your video shows is what a long process this was. And
yeah, I mean, even from like that at 12:50 until they broke into the Capitol, where I followed them in around 2:10 or 2:15. I think that was the New York Times, their investigation. I mean, that was like an hour and 20 minutes from the first line being breached to the Capitol itself being breached.
Now, when it just cut, was that?
Yeah, that's due to the camera. I mean, I sort of made it myself, so it had some issues. But I did not cut anything out. It's just it didn't record for however the couple frames or whatever. Not exactly sure how much it missed.
That's that guy again, the Pelosi's office guy. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah, so we're about to see it get crazy.
Okay. Is this the part that you also have video of?
Yeah, I took out my phone because I tried to sort of reach around the corner, but I think I actually, pressed the stop recording button as I reached around, so I didn't actually really end up capturing anything more with my phone.
I do have one other clip of yours that I'll play at the end, which shows.
Yeah, so you see they start fighting with each other, and then sort of actually climb up onto the base of a statue here, because you can see it sort of goes. There's like some pans being thrown. It's going to turn into sort of a pushing match.
crowd's starting to get agitated.
Yeah, so they actually managed to push the police back into this hallway. I wasn't really able to capture what went on inside the hallway. So basically, yeah, they were able to push this police line back a little, but there's a staircase back behind those officers, and some officers came up to reinforce them, and they're eventually able to sort of regain the control of this entrance.
And that's your phone you're
Yeah.
recording. So I'll show that video at the end. Do I dare try to cut to it now? Now, what are the police trying to do here, you think?
I mean, I think they were just sort of holding the. I think the exit ended up being on the opposite side, but they were sort of, I guess, establishing a perimeter, maybe, sort of keeping people from moving through this entrance or exit, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But so there's like a stairway behind them where, like, you know, some police officers came up to reinforce it, so maybe they didn't. Yeah, so someone yelled at me to get off the statue I was standing on to film from.
A police
Which
officer.
was one of the people in the crowd.
Oh, one of the people in the crowd.
Yeah, yeah.
Hear someone say, "Don't be disrespectful of the property." Yeah, my group was more destructive in their.
Yeah, I'm guessing that the people would have been a little more willing to, you know, destroy particular congressman's office rather than to destroy like a statue that feels more collectively owned. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it does. When you or the group that I was with was trying to create a barricade by tearing apart an office, so I think that it's a very different feel than the quote-unquote venerated halls of Congress.
Yeah.
A modern office versus.
Yeah, even though it comes out of the same budget in the end, but it's a different attitude, I guess.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Somebody says it's a really big building. I've been inside there before 9/11 when you used to be able to walk around freely. Huh.
Yeah, and the whole thing with it being an insurrection or not, it's like you can't overthrow the U.S. government by occupying any one building.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Watch that side. Watch that right.
the idea that they could have possibly overthrown the government is sort of absurd.
Yeah. I think it's a riot. I mean, the definition of insurrection, I'll read it. A very funny observation is that the anarchists actually weigh in. And the anarchists... What was that about? Do not assume?
I think that was just a conversation I overheard. I don't know what's going on there.
So an insurrection is defined as a violent uprising against an authority or government. So I think you can use the word insurrection.
And yeah, I guess with that definition, I guess I usually think of it more like an attempt to overthrow or take power.
Well, now that
But
would be,
and if it's just something that's against the government, then yeah, sure, an insurrection.
now the word that is misused, I think, is a coup. A coup is a sudden, violent, and illegal seizure of power from the government. And usually that involves the media and the military. So whereas insurrection or rebellion might be accurate, coup is not. And the people who make this point are the anarchists. I have been following a lot of kind of leftist anarchist history and recent history from the 80s and 90s into the 2000s. And one anarchist named Peter Gelderloos, who is critical of my work that documented the Black Bloc, had something interesting to say. But let's listen in. Is something going on here?
Yeah, so people are sort of trying to leave. So the rotunda, there had been that one entrance to the rotunda that the police were holding where there was that sort of fight. And then there were sort of police coming in from another side as well. So some people are starting to say like, hey, let's get out of here. So this is the doorway here. It's currently sort of blocked with people. But we'll see what happens here.
So the anarchist take is interesting because
yeah, so the police shut the doors here. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
They try to they do succeed in shutting the doors as the people are trying to come out. Yeah, so you hear him say, what were you hitting him for? I saw them like whack a guy in the back of the head with a baton as he was trying to squeeze through the door. So they're like, hitting him in the back as he was trying to go through. And I think a police officer had just like told him like, hey, get out of here. And then as he's getting out, they start hitting him with a baton. But I think that's one thing that there are police officers at the door, and then there's another police officer sort of back in the hallway, and it was like they were giving conflicting messages to the crowd.
There was a protest sign about the pandemic, it looked like. He's saying, please give me water.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people had encountered tear gas or pepper spray at some point.
And so now people can't get out, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so they just shut the doors. The police at the doors. So like I think the guy standing on the stairs was one of the people who had been saying like maybe get out, but then the police who were at the doors like shut the doors as people were trying to get out.
So the anarchist take points out that coup is an incorrect word, because the anarchist said this isn't even close to a coup because you need all these points of power to be consolidated, whether it's the media or the military. And in this case, this crowd wasn't even really realistically in control of anything.
Hold the door!
Yeah, so I'm not sure if the police officers opened the doors willingly or if they were sort of forced open. But yeah, you can see that the doors are open, and I think most of those people were able to exit. At least those who wanted to.
I wonder why maybe it's a psychological thing of no, you can't go out, so then people wanted to go out.
Yeah, I mean, there were people coming up to the door like they wanted to get out, and then before the police shut them. Because I think people were starting to feel like the police were boxing them into the rotunda. So you can see.
I don't think they shot anyone.
Yeah. Well, they did have rubber bullets.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see them.
Was it real?
Yeah. So this is the opposite side of the Capitol. I came in from.
This is the east side. Then,
yes. Yeah. So this is.
What happened to the guy who like fell off or something? I don't know. I just saw them. I think he fell off when they were climbing up the stairs. I think someone was saying he had broke both his legs.
Well, they were telling people not to climb up because they didn't want anybody hurt.
I scaled the whole fucking thing.
No!
Go in.
Yeah, so one interesting thing is there were like, so that you can see the protesters are like, you know, on the porch, but like on both ends, sort of pushed off to the side, there were groups of police officers. I don't know if you'll be able to catch a glimpse of that. Yeah, so you can sort of see those are the riot cops that are on the edge of the porch. They're not protecting anything. It was like they had been sort of sidelined.
So somebody comments that I'm the only journalist to point out the anarchist angle, no one else will touch it, despite what the black bloc is yelling as symbols they leave. Why is that? So that must be a reference to other riots, because certainly there are some black bloc people here, but for all that we know, they're part of the populace. But I was pointing out that
someone got killed?
One of my buddies posted on his Facebook, and he's pretty fucking alive. No, he's.
I mean, yeah. It's always difficult in stressful situations. Do you know her name?
What?
Do you know her name so we can check later?
Don't know. I just
No. Just secondhand. Okay.
Well, you sure as hell won't see it on the mainstream media.
Go take a
Yeah,
picture
so you can,
of the broken
can see
mirrors.
this. There's sort of.
They smashed it all up.
Hey, we got this. Trump's got this.
So at this time, I think I'm down below. I had come up to the scaffolding and then I'd gone back to do a live shot. And it was the same thing. People knew that somebody had gotten shot, but they didn't trust the media. They didn't trust anything in the information. And you wonder if the video of it didn't exist, if people wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah.
You know, here's a guy.
They don't not gonna listen to really no logical reason.
But that's why I think we do have the ability to get to the truth in a way. In this age of misinformation.
Yeah, so these are, I believe, Oath Keepers bringing someone who is injured. I don't know what the injury was. They sort of helped someone down the stairs.
All of you making the trip, sacrificing your ass.
Yeah, so you can see a bit of like the guy they're carrying down, sort of.
I don't know.
I don't know what his injury was.
Hey, yo, Eric. Eric.
Sit down.
So this is the side of the Capitol, the east side, where the guy I interviewed said he launched the agitation on the media pen. He said, quote, I went down with a couple of patriots or whatever it was, and that's not an exact quote. He said he gathered patriots, he went down, he said, the quote was, I agitated the crap out of the media. So we're going to see that guy.
Where's your Omega stuff if you're not Antifa? Why are you dressed in all black and why are you not repping Trump?
That's interesting.
He knows it. Okay.
Did you see people accusing people of being Antifa like that?
Yeah, so we're actually going to see John Sullivan. I think that might have actually been who he was talking to.
I saw someone got shot.
Yes, that's John Sullivan talking.
Rubber bullets or blood?
Someone said that you guys were lying about it, so I was like, look, I was inside. This is you guys think I'm lying. I just know black people don't identify. You have no logos, bro. That if you have a logo, you want to get caught? You think the cops don't know who you are? They can't find that fucking pair of Nikes you got?
That's Sullivan.
Yeah.
That's his hand.
Plus, people were saying that we got
Yeah, he's like showing someone the video he shot.
Look, it just matched the description, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, huh. Okay, when people
Oh, there
go
he is.
inside and they try to rob a bank, are they dressing up all black with the ski mask and shit? Where did the person get shot? I got you. I'm playing it safe. I'm being smart. I'm trying not to get caught. That's why I have a fucking bulletproof vest underneath this. Where did the person get shot and die? She got shot and died right before you break into like the main chambers. You know what I'm talking about? The video I showed you. You didn't show it to me yet.
Well,
No,
listen,
the video I showed.
listen,
Yeah.
the guy who came over here was bloody, and he got blasted with pepper spray or whatever.
Okay. But that's not cool, bro.
And
Like
he's-
trying to come
he
at me
came
like that
over
when I'm
with
here
his
for
phone.
everybody else. Like,
He
guys,
came over
it
with-
don't look bro, here, brother. Look, just you know what?
Yeah, so they're basically, I don't know, like, I think he was saying someone had been shot. They're accusing him of maybe spreading misinformation, and so he was clearing that up.
And they also point out that he's wearing all black and he's not repping Trump, right?
Yeah. So I think they were talking to him. That sounded like it was over a megaphone, maybe. But I think they were talking to him there. Which, yeah, I mean, at one point he sort of opened his jacket and showed that he had like some sort of bulletproof vest or plate carrier with like press on it, like how they have the letters, but it was, covered up by his jacket most of the time when he wasn't showing it.
Wow, I wasn't expecting to see Sullivan. I hadn't seen that part.
Yeah, I mean, I did not know who it was until I saw him on the news later. Like, because when they first arrested him, they let him go because he was like, hey, I was filming. But then they reviewed the footage and were like, you were doing a little more than filming. So.
Yeah. We have a comment. Amazing footage, by the way. Great guest. Having this in one take, experiential take, to be able to watch in real time. It's It's a huge part of history. Because again, if people don't see it these days, they may not necessarily believe it, you know? And I think the experiential feel that you get watching this straight for 2 hours is much different than any headline you look at or any analysis or pundit that's telling you what you should think. When you get to see it like this, you can at least make your own mind up. And maybe people will understand why, when a reporter like myself couldn't understand why everything was about race when I got back to my car.
And because, like, you know, you saw John Sullivan there. You know, I talked to, what was it, Hayar? He said his name was. Like, you would see, like, black people, brown people, you know, and I didn't see any of them, like, get harassed or yelled racial slurs at. It was just, like, maybe the people were, if they were white nationalists, they were pretty good at hiding it, you know, with their fellow, you know, rioters that were not white.
Well, that's the big question, is what is the real white supremacy quotient? How do we know? And I've asked this at the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they refuse to answer the question since they made their assessment in February. The Southern Poverty Law Center said that January 6th, Donald Trump incited a mob that included the hate and anti-government groups, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and the Three Percenters, to storm the U.S. Capitol in an insurrection to maintain white supremacy. That's the Southern Poverty Law Center. And in their press conference, I challenged, first of all, I've been waiting for the better part of a year to get comment on left-wing violence that I witnessed. And that's without agenda. It's only because I witnessed hate on the left and I want comment about it. But for them to characterize this and not be able to tell us what that determination is based on, how did you come to the determination that those groups were acting out of hate, one, and then two, that this was an insurrection to maintain white supremacy? That does not seem like solid journalistic methodology. And all I am asking for, allow me to say, show me the receipts, you know, show us where and how you made that determination. Because what happens is that these talking points went out in the 2 p.m. hour. Activists were cherry picking, trying to make this about white supremacy. And I challenged that, and I still challenge it, and I just asked for people to show evidence. Maybe I'm wrong. Look, I'm showing you this video, and I showed you an actual admitted white nationalist that we're going to see at the megaphone, or the open mic in a second. But I am still asking the audience, when we see him, is there evidence that he... What did he say? Antifa better
They
than us?
treat BLM and Antifa better than us.
Okay. That's an odd statement.
Maybe that was in the context of them having shot someone. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when we get into these... Okay, this is the open mic.
And you're strong! Yeah! And this is my final thing. If we faint in the day of adversity, our strength is not strong, but we are strong.
And that's sort of a paraphrase of a Bible verse.
Thank you.
This is a funny comment. The amount of custom Trump patches, flags, etc. is truly amazing. There's so much diversity. It's a funny joke.
Democrats said that we are deplorables, that only tens or hundreds of us will be here. Look at us.
We're strong.
We are strong. We are the people.
Okay, this is the open mic.
Yeah, now I think the audio might be off.
We will give them a peaceful choice.
Yeah.
We will reforge by fire.
Amen.
Sir, from there, parlay.
That guy,
Yeah, so you
is
can.
warm.
You got a few words?
Came here from North Dakota, own a small bar and steakhouse, and we are struggling. And that's if they take my liquor license.
So this is the audio is off.
Yeah, so the audio is earlier than the video. I didn't think it was this far off. I must have messed it up somehow.
Let me see.
I am prepared to defend myself.
Okay.
I am prepared
So we're
to
hearing
walk
from the
the
next
streets
guy,
of liberty
right?
with my own blood.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be the guy from with the bar.
I've had enough
Veteran
too.
service, we love our veterans.
Have you had
We
enough?
love our veterans.
Have you had enough too? Have you been inside?
Yeah.
Just like he said,
How was
the
that?
tree of
We
liberty
didn't go in.
must be refreshed.
Dangerous.
With the blood of patriots and the blood of tyrants, and that's a
I didn't see it myself, but I've heard secondhand from someone who said they saw it. They saw coming. They saw someone coming out who is supposedly splattered with their blood. So I don't know. I can't tell.
Where are you from?
North Carolina.
Minnesota. Commie soda. It's bad in my state.
Right now and pray to God.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why the audio is so off, but that was the person who I gave like a band-aid to. I think you'll see it on the video in a minute.
We honor you and we bless you, and we just
So I don't know what's going on with the audio.
Amen.
Amen. And with that, I'd like to say a prayer upon our congressmen and senators today who are here trying to defend us. Their families are being threatened. Their safety is being threatened. And they can't hide their identity. Everybody knows who it is. Josh Hawley from Missouri, a senator, the first senator to stand up and say, I am going to take it on. His home is being vandalized as of yesterday. His family members are no longer safe. And so I just want to say a prayer. Dear Lord, I pray for Senator Josh Hawley. I pray for our congressmen and our senators. And I pray that they may be strengthened, they may be able to bear the cross and bear the burden which thou hast given them, knowing they are doing the right thing, Lord. Let them stand with Donald Trump, Lord, in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
USA! 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 USA!
USA.
I'd like to thank everyone here for the.
Just a couple updates.
Sorry.
First of all, mission accomplished.
This is the guy.
Do you know what you
Yeah.
did? You know what you did? History has been made here today. Simultaneously, you broke in through the front and through the rear. They could not stop you. You occupied the building. You caused them to stop what they were doing. They had to evacuate. They couldn't complete their session. Mission accomplished. Excellent. Excellent.
I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to play. I
The
think
right
this will
thing,
just
Lord.
sync.
Let them stand with Donald Trump, Lord, in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
We'll hear him again. It's the same speech. but I think-
USA! 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 USA!
USA.
I'd like to thank everyone here from the bottom of my heart. What's little left, because I am mad. And I know you are too, and that's why we're here. We have a purpose. And our battle is not a violent one. We are going to be heard one way or the next, whether I'm shouting on the front floor here or not. So we better wake up, people. This is our battle. This is our revolution. And this is our day.
Do you need a bandage? I have a first aid kit.
Amen. Amen.
See if I can dig it out.
As a young boy, I was taught that freedom is the choice to do whatever you want.
Let's see.
Of that choice. Can you go to the store on your own? No.
No, you wanna?
What can you do?
You wanna wipe it off with one of these before?
What can you stand up for without being penalized? You had
Yeah, I mean, out here on this microphone, there are a lot of people talking about the pandemic restrictions.
Right.
Are you America? Are you America? Hey!
This would be able to get most of it. I don't have a really big one.
USA!
Okay.
USA! 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 The final note. Fuck China!
And thank you. This is an open mic. If you have a few words you'd like to say, a message you would like to share, this is an open mic. Just come on up. Don't be shy.
What's her skirt? What's the deal with her skirt?
I think she has basically fraudulent ballots pinned to it. I think that's what it is.
Gotcha.
Here's what I'm going to say. Trump is to defer the New World Order. Okay? They wanted us to aliens and tell us that they were our friends. But Trump created the Space Force so we could kick their fucking asses!
That's the interesting angle on it.
No, is she serious?
There's a couple
Or
updates. First of all,
I think so.
Accomplished, Patriots.
Here's this
You know
guy
what
again.
you did? You know what you did? History has been made here today. Simultaneously, you broke in through the front and through the rear. They could not stop you. You occupied the building. You caused them to stop what they were doing. They had to evacuate. They couldn't complete their session. Mission accomplished. Excellent. Excellent. If you want to go up there, it's kind of at your own risk. They're really being pushy. There's a lot more cops in there. They have tunnels. They brought them all in. They really got pushy. You see people coming out hurt. Do it at your own risk, go up or not. And that's what happened. Also, the mayor put in a 6 p.m. curfew. So I say, and a lot of people want to do, we're going to meet at her place at 6 p.m. and sing her some carols. What do you say? Absolutely. We're going to record everything that's been seen everywhere. The line press is hidden over there in their little line press corner. Got the new press over here. Thanks, everyone. God bless you. USA!
Wonderful. Again, my name is Lisa. I'm a patriot. I traveled here from Sacramento because this meant a lot to me. This is an open mic. If you have a message, if you want to practice public speaking, if you want to do anything to strengthen the conservative side, go ahead and come on up and share your message. We got one right here. We go.
So he's talking to some other.
Karen Jones. I'm from California, home of the Reagan Ranch. And I'm very proud to be here. I was in the first wave up the stairs. I looked down. Thank you to all the people who carried me in the crowd. Took a little pepper spray. Didn't think I'd ever be sprayed by cops in my own country. I support the police. But I would like everyone to please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your hand over your heart.
Hey, look at that flag.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
I'm a student at the University of Illinois. Huntington Beach.
Boom!
You were a big help. An unpleasing experience where all my views are wrong and thought down on, and there's no discussion anymore in school, and we just have to let our kids know that whatever we believe in is what we believe in, and we have to stand up for it. Thank you.
That is so true. Thank you for holding true to your values in such an indoctrinating environment.
Hi, my name is Brian Haig. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm 62 years old. Donald Trump is the first president that promised to get rid of Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, and I think even that guy is the quieter voice you heard just then. I couldn't tell what he was saying.
You can't kill your children, especially in this country blessed by God. And did anybody bother to tell those Antifa people Black Lives Matter? 80% of the children that die in abortion clinics are non-white. They don't put abortion clinics in expensive neighborhoods. They put them in poor neighborhoods so that the poor people can get rid of their children. Those are future voters. God bless America.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming out and showing your support. We have a few more words from another patriot.
They used live rounds upstairs.
They killed a woman!
They killed a woman upstairs. She was looking through a window. They shot her through the chest. There's a rumor that they hit her with the baton. That's a lie. I smelled the gunpowder. I watched her fall. They shot her with live rounds through a window from at least 20 feet away.
We have the footage, and we're going to put it on the internet. You don't have to go to a place where we're going. It's going to be spread everywhere, okay? You can go to places like DLive, watch the news. Our streams are on that, okay? Soon enough, that footage will be coming out and disseminated, all right? We don't know if she's dead, but we do have we have a shot through a double pane glass window into a lane of blood, arterial blood, and smell of gunpowder, and multiple witnesses. That's what we know so far. They're maybe trying to change the story.
They shot her after they busted the window. I didn't, but the window was busted out, and they shot her through the open window. Well, she was standing next to two Capitol police officers. There was two Capitol police officers this close, standing right next to her. They didn't see any threat. If she was a threat, they could have done something to her. She was little. Some asshole from 20 feet away decided to shoot her through a window. Oh, one more thing. Then they told us that they weren't bringing her out until we left. And I told them, there's 100,000 people behind me. I can't back up. I'm almost getting trampled. Well, she can't go anywhere until y'all leave. They could have opened the doors and took her through the doors where all the other people were evacuating through. They wouldn't do it.
The government abuse of power. They're the public servants. We, the people, need to demand our servants start acting like servants. Let's hear from another patriot.
I mean, it sort of sounded like the National Socialist guy. It sort of sounded like he was saying he streamed on DLive.
There's nothing but love here today.
Yeah.
And I know that we didn't want
does,
to come to this. We didn't want to come out here and protest. We didn't want to not be able to have faith in our own elections, okay? Everybody wants to believe in the integrity of America and of their vote. And that's why we're out here today. It's not to install Trump. It's not about Trump. It's not about Biden. It's about the integrity and the transparency of our American elections. And right now, even the lowest polls say only 4 out of 10 Americans.
He told me he was a streamer.
That is not acceptable. You cannot ignore the will of the people. You were elected by the people, and if we can't have confidence in our elections, then we don't have. Our government is a sham.
I think it might be the length of this clip that the sound gets off.
Yeah,
it's a 2-hour clip.
They were scared.
Yeah.
Most of them were up there just trying to do their job. But at the same time, I mean, look, this is our house. This is the people's house. We have a right to be here. We shouldn't be cordoned off and kept from our house. We have a right to protest. We have a right to peaceful protest and civil disobedience. And that's what this is about today. That's why everyone is here today. We just want to be heard, and we just want the truth to prevail. Whatever that is, steps need to audit the vote. That's all we want. A transparent audit of the vote. And if Biden won. But myself and many Americans don't believe that's what happened. Anyway, I want to thank all of you guys for coming out today. I love you guys. God bless America. Pray for America right now.
Do you know what they're responding
Pray
to?
for America.
No, but it does seem like some of the chants were in response to something other than the speeches going on.
Incognito for the other politicians who have sold out. Their families are not there, not safe. We must depend on God to protect them and for us to protect them. We are in trouble, patriots.
No truer words have ever been said. We are in trouble. Our nation stands at a crossroad. How much different is it than Lexington and Concord? The Brits are coming. Did those guys run? No. They had things to do. They didn't go home. I'm not even telling anybody here what to do. But I know this, that the people went up those stairs over there on the other side. That young lady did get shot. We were there. I was 20 feet behind her. But you know something? If she dies for the cause of freedom. She is an American hero. And I'm going to do something stupid. I'm not a singer, but I'm going to sing this. Remember Twisted Sister? We ain't gonna take it. We ain't gonna take it anymore. Come on, everybody. We ain't gonna take it. We ain't gonna take it anymore. Come on, you're Americans. This is the America I remember. God bless you. We're still a country. We can't let them take it. There's three things that we have the right, in the First Amendment, the right of the freedom of speech, peaceably assemble, and a redress of...
Yeah, so you can see here there's a police officer wearing a MAGA hat who is leading out the cops in riot gear, which, I mean, I think that it made the news that there's a police officer who put on a MAGA hat. But here you can see I believe it was those police officers who had been sort of trapped to the side, maybe. Those are also wearing riot gear. But you can see there's some of the guys in military gear sort of escorting them.
That's interesting.
And there's that one guy yelling at them, violating the Constitution, but then I think you'll see other people saying thank you.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I saw people yelling Oathbreaker, and then some people saying thank you. Now they're playing the song with the correct lyrics. We're not going to. Twisted Sister, yes, that's right.
You dropped your glasses.
Who are you talking to there?
I'm not sure. Someone who dropped their glasses, I suppose. I think maybe it was that woman who you just saw sort of reach down.
So at this
drop
point,
some sunglasses.
Capitol Police are being, escorted through?
Yeah. Yeah, so the officer leading them wearing the MAGA hat, he was not in riot gear, but these 10 or so guys were in riot gear being let out. And it's hard to see, but there's another group that went to sort of the left if you're facing this side. This sort of walk off to the side, which I didn't see as much of, but I think you'll catch the tail of them leaving I'm not sure. So you can see the tire there is flattened.
Oh.
Which, in a little bit, we'll see someone letting air out of the tires. Which, at first I thought they were slashed, but then I saw someone with a multi-tool in the little air valve letting air out.
I see. So the thought that I didn't finish was that the anarchist, when in a podcast, was saying that the word insurrection, that even using that word, these are terms that are near and dear to us in the anarchist scene. Because actually the word insurrectos is how sort of the old school...
Water this is? Okay, I'm going to drink some of it. I'm thirsty.
Yeah, I just found a half full bottle of water, and I sort of wanted to wash the tear gas out of my mouth.
Still got some tear gas in my mouth.
Yeah, I think at that point you just take what you can get. It's COVID risk, but assessed risk. But as I was saying, so they used to, the sort of anarchists would call themselves insurrectos and use insurrection as kind of the rallying cry. So for it to be now used for the right wing, there was discussion within the anarchist community that this was hey, wait a minute,
Yeah, appropriation of
cultural appropriation,
political symbols.
or political appropriation. But their conclusion was that the term riot is correct, and specifically, the anarchists said this should be looked at as a white riot. So again, that takes us full circle to the social justice race talking point, which comes from not only the press but from the anarchists.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was predominantly white in makeup. So I guess if you want to say it's a white riot in terms of the composition of the rioters, that would be generally accurate, but not wholly accurate. I mean,
well, even to I think what needs to be parsed is, yes, and I actually looked at the statistics, and it's in the 90% as far as white males among the arrestees. Those were arrested.
Yeah.
Those were at the very sort of point, the spearhead, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, like outside, I guess you saw, I think there are more women in this crowd outside here than there were like inside the Capitol.
Right, there were some, but very few.
Not as many.
Not as many women were inside the Capitol.
And
in my group, there was an older lady who was in it, surprisingly, like a grandma. And some of the first people in that I interviewed said they were called Praying Grandmas, was the name of their Facebook group. And they were very open about that they had gone in to the Capitol.
Yeah. And in terms of like there's that one guy who you interviewed later who said he was an extremist and sympathized with National Socialists. I think you said, he was on the mic. So it's like, is he representative of them? Or maybe the girl who is saying Trump formed Space Force to fight off the aliens. Is she representative of them? Is this an anti-alien riot?
That's a good point, which is, can you just take one person and their stream of consciousness, batshit, whatever, that's coming out of their mouth and characterize the entire group? And you really can't. And that's why I keep pressing the Southern Poverty Law Center, because they have influence over the press. So if they say that everything is about white supremacy, well, then the press is going to run with it. But if they can't provide any evidence of that, well, then we have to stop, rewind the tape, and look at the whole thing, in my opinion. And that's a very good point. Why aren't we fixating on, although the Viking guy does get a lot of attention because he's QAnon, but the QAnon guy, the QAnon shaman, the National Socialist, and the space alien, Space Force woman are all in the same sort of, outlier crowd. And to just take one of them and cherry pick them to characterize what essentially... Oh, he's letting out the air.
Yeah, you can hear the hiss and... Yeah.
Let's listen for a sec. Well, even comparing the techniques, letting the air out as opposed to slashing the tires is certainly a more pacifistic.
Yeah, I mean, I think he even made a comment, I don't know if it was recorded, but basically we own these tires.
I mean, it goes back to the velvet rope thing of walking into the Capitol and staying inside the lines of the velvet rope, letting out the air of the tires as opposed to slashing them. There are these sort of differences in techniques when there are also similarities when it comes to using pedestrian, clubs or flagpoles or we saw bricks, though there's no, we didn't see those thrown. We did see a fire extinguisher thrown, and the fire extinguisher that you captured is different than the fire extinguisher that, of course, everybody knows about, which was thrown on the
hoax.
Well, the hoax part that you might be referring to is that was the moment that Officer Sicknick was killed.
Yeah. There were thrown, but didn't kill him.
Right. And do we know if Officer Sicknick was actually hit by the fire extinguisher? Because I don't even know.
I'm thinking not.
I don't even
because
know we know that.
Yeah. He texted his brother afterwards and said, like, I'm okay. I got sprayed a couple times.
Right.
Like, he would have to get hit pretty hard in the head to not mention it to his brother, like, to forget. Like, yeah, I also got bashed in the head, but I'll just mention I was pepper sprayed.
Right. The omission, in other words, is significant. And, again, this comes from Twitter. You find a clip like that on Twitter. If you are a keyboard warrior, you take that and then you marry it with the information that an officer has died, and then you just spread it out there. And as I said in the intro, the lie will travel around the world when the truth is still lacing up its shoes. There is no better axiom that can describe what we're living through right now. And with Twitter, it travels really fast. Someone says we got wounded over there. What's that?
And I'm not sure if I don't know who they're specifically referring to. But there were several people I saw injured, like, the guy who was helped down the steps. Other people look like they had got a face full of chemicals.
Yeah, I'd seen people like that too when I was on the other side now.
Patriots just took the Capitol. Yes.
Someone says Patriots just took the Capitol. This is about coming up at 4 p.m. actually, because the timestamp is off.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm on the other side reporting. And the other group will want to go in within the hour.
Yeah, so this area over here, when I first came out, there were a bunch of police officers there, but they had been sort of, guided out through the crowd where there are those riot cops leaving it on one side and sort of the rest of the police sort of left and walked out another way.
Which side? They were throwing rocks over there.
Do you think?
Oh yeah, I was upstairs when the girls got shot earlier.
Said something about throwing rocks.
Yeah, someone was there and she got shot. I think God is skipping for some reason.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, we're playing a 2-hour clip. So the skipping and the audio displacement has to do, I think, with how the streaming service is dealing with such a long 2-hour clip.
I don't think they're saying the steel is real.
Yeah, I think so.
We might as well occupy this motherfucker.
Yeah, so I think the video is just about over.
All right, and
I'm gonna walk somewhere and then turn it off.
So what we've seen roughly is between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And at the Capitol, starting on the west side and ending on the east side. And there were...
Now, it looked like that person just had something in his hand that looked like a picture frame. I don't know if that's something he filched off a wall. I didn't notice that before.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't tell what's on it, but it looks like it might be stolen.
Some sort of picture frame there. Interesting. Souvenir. Yes. Wow, that was kind of intense to watch in the sense that you really get the feeling that you're there, you know, that you're in it. And I guess it's about to cut out. And right down below to the edge of the grass, that's sort of where I was able to get a signal and do my live shots. And I was on the other side and then made my way up. And somehow I kept the signal. And my live shot, where you see the video of the bullhorn lady, it's really fragmented itself until I get inside. And all of a sudden, when I'm in the congressional offices, it just seems that my group was much more riotous than this group, in the sense that once my group that I don't want to call them my group, but the group with which I was documenting, once they got in, they did start destroying things, whereas the mass group, once they got in, didn't seem to. There seemed to be a kind of code of, you know, get down from there, or don't touch that, or, you know.
Yeah.
Did you see a lot of that?
I guess so. It was first, in the basement of the rotunda, there was the display that I think it was maybe a map of Washington D.C. with little buildings for the monuments and stuff, and someone started hitting it with a pole, and a couple of people were like, "Hey, don't do that." And there were some other instances, someone yelled at me to get off the statue that I was standing on to film from. Let me see. So yeah, as I said, in Pelosi's office, I saw I didn't see someone break the mirror, but I saw a mirror that was broken. But even by and large, it looked like they hadn't like ransacked her office.
I was going to say,
I don't know.
For about 1,000 people that were in there, you know, I'm surprised of the lack of, for the amount of time that you were in there. I expected to see some ransacking, but I think maybe that explains why media went so hard with my video, because my video did show ransacking. So they loved it. And even though I said no to all of the outlets, I said, you cannot use this. They took it. They stole it. And I'm realizing why. It's because these companies, these corporations have so much money that one guy, you know, just steal the video if it's important, ask questions later, and they'll pay it on the back end. And they know how hard it is to get representation, the loops you have to go through, and so forth. So that said, I appreciate you sharing your extensive clip to the public, really as a public service, because that's what that's akin to what I've been trying to do, which is just get people to see what the reality is.
Yeah, to have a more holistic view of what happened.
And be able to discuss it, because that takes you out of the usage, because that's what they want. They want usage. All of these corporations, it's even in the word, they want to use your work. They want to use you, in a sense. And so I denied usage, you know, most of the year. I was submitting pieces that I had written with very little interest, because I think a lot of people, I was one of these people who had confidence in media and thought that people were overreacting when it came to imposition of narratives. I thought that was an overreaction. Well, once you know, you're outside of your job and you're doing this and you have all the time in the world and you can investigate on your own, then you see that, wow, when you're there and you experience it, what's being written doesn't match what I'm experiencing. Now, when my video was stolen, what was extremely significant was that the companies weren't even interested in talking to me. They were interested in the usage. A few of them had questions here and there. What time did this happen? That's an obvious one. But for the most part, they weren't interested in my perspective. And they made that very clear. They were interested in getting the video out and combining it with other information so that they could propel a more exciting story. My video of them ransacking the office appeared on CNN under a headline that said, U.S. says Capitol rioters planned to assassinate and capture elected officials. As you can see by your 2 hours of footage, not only was there very little, if much, planning, but that certainly is a very speculative headline. And so, so for my video to have been used for that, I found particularly, I guess I'll use the word offensive. I am not offended much, and I make that clear. But when people have that much power and that they can just take things from you, and even when you say no, as I did to CNN, they said, can we use this video? And I said, no. They used it anyway. And when I texted the guy who had approached me, the producer at CNN, and I said, I want to make this clear. You cannot use this video. It stayed up. I think it's probably still up today. So we're dealing with a kind of tyrannical media, you know, that will just take what they want. And they're not doing journalism. They're not talking to you or to me or to the people that were there. They want to ride a certain wave. And that's why I think we need to hold media accountable, and we have to demand to say, hey, we saw things. We didn't see guns. That's another trending topic from Twitter, was armed insurrection. There were 3 gun arrests within the vicinity that were not necessarily on the Capitol grounds. So when we say this is what we saw, I think we need to keep saying that, because what's being written and what's being emotionalized through Twitter does not match unless you can show me. And that's what I'm open to. Show me the proof. Show me the evidence, and we can parse it. So I appreciate you providing 2 hours of footage that we could look at and break down and talk about. And you could see, even from my cultural perspective, I was looking for Germanic letters. that's how ingrained it is for someone like me to look at a crowd from the right and just be like, where are the Nazis? And that's just that's a flawed thinking, as opposed to what's going on. What are the people upset about? Why do they feel disenfranchised? What are the complaints, the grievances over COVID restrictions? And is there anything that you think might have been left out from this point that media hasn't understood about the character of or the grievances of that crowd? Because as I came down from the hill, I sort of was remarking that I didn't see any of this being about race. And then I get to my rental car, I get my signal, and I look on my social media, and everybody's talking about race.
Yeah. I think that the code restrictions, which, a couple of the people on the mic were talking about, I think that definitely played a role. And I don't think there is any year other than 2020 where this would have happened. I guess you sort of had there's probably a general economic situation where you had, riots, all throughout the year. I think that played into it some, as well as people upset with the government, specifically for the government's response, which is probably something a little different dynamic than you had in most of the riots that happened. And I would say also going into it, there is this frustration with the police and this perception that the police aren't upholding law and order. So I think the people there felt like they were representing law and order more than the police that they were fighting were. And, when they probably end up going to prison, they'll find that it's not the case, that the police are just sitting back all the time and, not caring as the riots happen.
Well, then that brings up a really interesting point, because you said all of this in regards to COVID, but the other factor, of course, is Black Lives Matter protests, civil unrest, and what is perceived as Antifa as a monolithic, as opposed to how I see it, which is dispersed activist groups of the Antifa movement. They're Antifa aligned groups, but this idea that another part of the population was able to get away with law and disorder, I think creeps up. We heard Antifa mentioned a couple times, and I saw back in December a sign that was held at one of these rallies, what they were called the Million MAGA marches, that said, "Now we revolt," and "we" was capitalized, and that was after the election. That there was this sort of so just as much as you ask yourself, well, does this have to do with COVID and all this other stuff? How much also does it have to do with civil unrest and being part of a holistic sort of zeitgeist or feeling of the times, where people are feeling that this is what we can do, and we know we can do it because somebody else did it, so now we're going to do it.
Yeah.
How did you hear Antifa mentioned much? I heard it a couple times myself.
And yeah, probably a few times, as it was in the video, sort of, I guess there's, one person saying like they treat BLM and Antifa better than us, which, some people would dispute it, but, when they're, I don't know if you're in DC earlier in the summer when there were the riots, but it certainly seemed, at least I wasn't there, but from the media coverage, it seemed like they were more harsh in some regards, like with the amount of troops they had out there. But I also think they didn't shoot any of those protesters. So it's sort of like, which one's worse, having one person get shot or having a lot of people get tear gas?
You know, it brings up this sort of untalkable conversation, which is who is wronged more. And I think that kind of bugged me because when I was coming down the hill the first time, it was around 3:00, I saw, that was the first time I got service again. And I've told the story how an activist journalist was saying, if this were people of color, they would have been already shot with live rounds. And then, of course, within the hour, somebody was. But I think we get in that kind, and I was sort of tweeting out into the universe, hey, there's more going on here. Okay, it's your right to have that interpretation, but I think that there's more going on here that we have to look at. And the Chicago Project, which was printed by the Atlantic, also said there's more going on here that we have to figure out. This is not the same demographic. You also saw that how much older people were, and the Atlantic piece points that out. They say you had business owners, this is a very different situation than what we have come to think of as right-wing extremism. And I've had other shows with other journalists where we talk about this even being different from the Charlottesville, crowd and iteration. So just trying to get people to actually be journalists and ask who was there, what was going on, and figure out what we need to do to moderate as a country, I think is a topic that people don't even want to touch. And that makes me want to actually fight harder to talk to people. But it makes me ask, why not try to get us to moderate? Why are we comparing constantly people's grievances, that this is not like this and this is not like this? And you can, when you see that clip play out for 2 hours, it's not like anything. It's not like anything in my lifetime that's happened. And I think that should be regarded, that this was a one sort of like historical thing, and we should try to figure out why it happened, who was there, and how to not let it happen again. Just as we should try to figure out, the civil unrest at the end of May in Minneapolis and try to figure out what, who was there and how we can moderate. And I think that's the press is not letting us do that. The press is insisting that we go to sort of battle lines on social media day after day to kind of try to hit at each other and rally our small little tribes for the sake of likes and clicks and this and that. And
that's a more useful narrative for many people who are sort of crafting the narrative that, on the one hand, look at all these people who got away with rioting all summer. And then, on the other hand, look, these people almost overthrew the government. Each of those narratives is attractive on a different side to be like, hey, look at all this important stuff happening, and you really need to read our newspaper, watch our media, or read our tweets, because we're going to tell you what's really happening, and you better watch because it's important.
Well, and it takes time. Here we are 2 months later, and we know a lot now that if we had played that video 3 days after, well, we probably would have had the same impressions overall. But we have a lot more information that we can parse. We know some of the demographic figures about who was there. Again, that figure that only 1 in 10 of the arrestees, now they're up to 300, only 1 in 10 belonged to a militia or a group such as the Proud Boys. So now that we know that, and we know the article in the Atlantic asks, the Chicago Project asks, we have to try to figure this out. And obviously they were brought together around Donald Trump. that movement, that it's not going to just disappear. You can deplatform and pull people off social media all you want, but if you do that, you're not understanding the nature, not just of Americans, but just the nature of humans. That if you take their voice away and say you are this and everybody who platforms this or does that needs to be silenced, they're only going to go to the further corners of, if they're extremists, of the encrypted web, the dark web, or wherever, and become more enraged. So acknowledging what has happened is a big step for us as a country. And to my knowledge, we have not acknowledged what has happened in the last year.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I was thinking of as you mentioned the deplatforming is, I think it'll lead to more division in the sense that, sort of the mainstream cultural institutions are more left-leaning. You see these social media sites that are deplatforming people, but it's not something that's universal. Like, there is, communication by Trump supporters and stuff on the internet. Maybe you kick all those off. But there are places in America where you go out, you talk to your neighbor, they agree with you politically, you're both on the right, you talk about it. So I think deplatforming won't just lead to sort of more extremism in the people who are deplatformed, but I think will also be sort of communities that sort of separate in their just general idea of how they see the world. Because if you're talking to your neighbor and you're like, oh, did you see that? Well, what really happened is this. And you can still have a collective idea because there are these, there are different places with different cultures and different shared ideas. So I think if you stop the communication, then you'll have more fracturing just in the broader society.
Right, and people will trust the media even less, and I think that what we're seeing with the deplatforming is the culture is sort of trying to solve, it's a protectionist instinct, which says we must subdue anything that will be a possible threat. And the problem with that is that you're creating more opportunities for radicalization and extremism, because I don't think suppression ever works. I really don't. I think engagement works. And I think that suppression is going to create more animus and just altogether those groups that we could see. Let's say we could see all the Proud Boys and 3%ers on Parler. Well, you take them off of it. You take Parler down, or you take them off of it. Well, where do they go? They're not just going to say, oh, well, I guess we can't be that anymore. I think that is a very simplistic, naive, and foolish way of looking at it. And I almost asked, I'll have some academics on eventually, because I want to talk to them about how they look at extremism. And it's mostly extreme. Let's be honest. It's mostly extremism from the right that gets all the attention. Now, the reason for that, again, the statistic that you hear cited is that deaths have resulted out of rightist extremism as opposed to leftist. That's true. But that does not mean that leftist extremism does not influence rightist extremism. In some ways, if you trace back the history back to the late 80s, and you go to like neo-Nazi skinheads going up against anti-racist skinheads, that this conflict has been around for decades. And these are different new iterations that we're seeing. But they exist symbiotically in the sense that if you put them together, they begin to give each other purpose. So if you give one an undecided victory and you deplatform the other, well, you're not looking at it holistically. You're giving more opportunity for the suppressed, the deplatformed, to want to radicalize even more. And when in reality, we should be looking at both sides and trying to get everybody to moderate and come to some understanding of who we are as a nation and how we can have conversations that are difficult. But media is not interested in that. And you're right, like there are certain things that trend. It was if you could steal my video of a Pennsylvania mother with a bullhorn and say that was evidence of coordination, when really it was just a woman who was very sort of exuberant and kind of helicoptering her advice with maybe one person listening to her. But that description that I just gave, if I did something like this where I showed my video and really broke it down and talked, that's not what people are latching on to in the moment. In the moment, they want that one soundbite that satisfies all these sort of requirements in their own mind to show that side is wrong or that side is corrupt or despicable or whatever word you want to use. And that media is working in service of that. I think the only way we pull back is if we can get media companies to realize the value in content coming out 2 months later, a month later, that really breaks down the truth. We're starting to see that with like HBO documentaries or Netflix, is if we are able to look at, if that is able to take precedence over the instantaneous Twitter gratification of processing information, then we might have hope. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a little hopeful. Yeah, it's like I think sort of the right has a lot of valid criticisms of media, but unfortunately, many of the sort of right-wing media companies who have sprung up, like, look at how bad these mainstream media companies are, so we're going to do it. A lot of those seem to fall into the same, counterproductive behaviors of, oh, look, the leftists are bad. People on the left are bad. Look at all the bad things they're doing. And even if every single incident they post about is true, that doesn't mean the overall narrative is accurate, is sort of portraying what's really going on. You can say, well, look, this person did hit a police officer, and this person did light something on fire, and this person did smash a window. All of those might be true, but like, I don't know, is that the focus? Like, is that useful to focus on?
Well, what we were told, and there was a speech that an activist named Kimberly Jones gave, and it was famously aired, I think, in the whole by John Oliver. I know she had appeared on, Trevor Noah's show, The Daily Show, and her comment, which went viral, which is, you have to ask yourself why the people are breaking the windows. Well, it has to be in all situations that we ask ourselves that. Why are people doing what they're doing? And what are people in our society collectively reacting to? And I think that once we set our mind to that and try to address that, as opposed to just get a charge out of being right or being the one who's, or demonizing the other side, if we can figure out how to do that, then we're going to make progress. If we're stuck in this rut that we've been in, we are not, and from the likes of it, we have some supportive comments. Thanks for trying to depolarize. You have a good heart. Division is fashionable right now. Destructive, but fashionable. It is very fashionable. It is very active, and younger generations. Now you're of a different generation than I, and maybe you can address generationally what you see. Here's another comment. It's interesting to hear somebody quote Martin Luther King. The right is I think it's the voice of the voiceless. I think the quote is, the right is the voice of the unheard, as MLK said. Appreciate your efforts to depolarize. So now you have somebody in the context of what we've presented citing MLK, which is interesting. And, some people can be offended by that. But it's germane to the same thing that Kimberly Jones said, which is, why are the people doing what they're doing? Now, there's more to that quote. The riot is the voice of the unheard. Martin Luther King goes on to say, I hope we can avoid riots because ultimately they are socially destructive. I think we have to be honest with the amount of social destruction that we have been dealing with over the last year. And until we're honest about that, about what has happened, then we're going to be stuck in this finger pointing. And even in showing this video, there is trepidation in the sense that there are keyboard warriors out there. Now, my work is not heavily trafficked, but there could be people who watch it and say, I want to get every single person who was at the Capitol, which is just insane, because even the methodology of I have to get people, and this is just accountability. I have to get them. It's not going to address the fundamental issue, which is the polarization and the demonization of each other in our country, and the lack of mutual respect. So I'm curious generationally how you see that query before we go, because I know that your generation online is a lot more active and a lot more has been able to. Whether they have a vested interest to see the future they want, but has that led to some generational intolerance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I can speak to my generation too much. I don't know how much time I spend around my generation. I think to some extent there have been studies that my generation would be better at sort of at picking out fake news sort of that is shared online. I think they're better at navigating online spaces. But in terms of political polarization, I don't know. It seems like there are a lot of youth involved in a lot of the activism on the left, especially, but some on the right too, especially like pro-life events. There seems to be more of a proportion of like teenagers in that age range. Compared to other things, like at the Capitol, I don't know if I saw any teenagers there.
Right, it was a much older crowd, certainly. Well, any last sort of parting thoughts as you watched this, going out into the Twitterverse and the YouTube sphere? Any thoughts that you had, things that you see when you watch it over and over again that maybe you didn't see the first time?
I don't think there is anything major that I noticed this time going through.
Yeah, anything that you picked up, maybe not the first time, that you picked up later that you didn't see before. In other words, is there something that the camera captured that you looked at later and were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed that?
This is sort of the first time I've really gone through it in a detailed way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess there wasn't anything that jumped out at me as something that the camera captured that I didn't notice, because I think generally I noticed more than the camera captured, just the way it was. Just getting a better idea of being able to see something without it moving around all over the place.
There was one more clip that I didn't play yet, and that's when you were by the statue.
Yeah, so this was early in the morning for most. Oh, sorry, this is a different one.
This was, I think, when you're by the statue, right?
Yes, by the statue.
Yeah, so you can watch this. Now, what's remarkable about this, from my point of view, is watch how the crowd will suddenly surge. It's not even necessarily a slow build. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. And I think it's and it looks like they have control of the situation. And then boom.
Yeah, and you can just see how easy it would be for someone to get trampled in a situation like that.
And yeah,
because no one person is in control of where it moves.
And on my website, publicreport.org, you do see publicreport.org/capital with an O. I have some interviews, and one of them is a Pacific Northwest video live streamer who tells me that he's right next to Roseanne Boylan when she collapses, and that there was just spray going everywhere, people couldn't breathe, and and the woman collapsed to the ground, and he was there with her when she died. And so overall there were 4 civilian deaths and 1 law officer who died. There were 2 officers who committed suicide within the next month or so. So
yeah, I believe there's at least one rider who committed suicide.
Oh, really? Okay. Yes, I did read that report too. I had omitted that. So the day that the National Socialist sympathizer guy who I interviewed, and one thing we didn't touch on, which was he alone or did he have other people? The guy that gets on the mic after him, who I think had a Gadsden flag, and he's talking about Ashley Babbitt being shot.
Mm-hmm.
And he corrects himself because he said we, and then he said
I wasn't breaking the window.
I wasn't breaking the window, and he makes that clear.
That's what he said.
That guy was wearing some black, but I couldn't tell if he was with the other guy. They might have just met. Again, this is how sort of disparate when it comes to what is called autonomous action, and leftists use the term autonomous action that just comes up without sort of an extensive network planning. It's unclear if this guy, who was interesting as an interview, he's definitely anti-diversity and against everything, certainly, that I stand for, but it seemed he was alone, because he goes and talks about going to the mayor's house to protest. I went to the mayor's residence after at about the 6 p.m. hour, and nothing happened. I think they all probably got cut off and sent somewhere else. But he shows up the next day, January the 6th, still in his tactical gear, to quote unquote take some sort of responsibility or just like when he said mission accomplished. But it's not clear that he had anybody else working with him by himself. He does say in my interview that he went down with, did you recall?
He said 20
Patriots?
is the number.
Okay. So you caught that this last time when I played it. Okay. Yeah, he says he went with 20 Patriots down to agitate the crap out of the media. And that's on the east side. There was a media pen, and all of the major networks who were there had their equipment smashed, and they sort of railed against mainstream media. So that guy, though, if he had 20 people, it's not clear that those 20 people knew each other beforehand. It seems more reasonable, given the evidence, that he showed up alone, and that he didn't seem to have a posse with him when he gave his rousing mission accomplished speech. He seemed like he was a little bit of a loner. And so that tells me that, again, here's a professed National Socialist. You had another National Socialist sympathizer that was arrested in the headlines because he was a contractor for the military. Mm-hmm. And this just came out the other day that he was arrested and that he had grown a Hitler mustache at one point. I don't know if it was years ago. But of course, this is, headline news. But again, do these people fit into the same category as the space alien NASA woman, Or are they, and that's the big question. And that's why we need our hate watch groups to not be political, to not be partisan. But we need them to look at evidence and tell us, what are we really dealing with? What is the quotient of actual white supremacy or hate, or, that kind of nationalism or that is hate based? And we have to have real discussions, because otherwise the weaponization of information of you are, and then everybody getting online to make sure everybody else goes to jail. It's the rest of that quote, the riot, is the voice of the unheard, is that riots are ultimately socially destructive. And we have a lot to reckon with and reconcile still.
Yeah, I mean, one thing in terms of the hate groups or the hate watch, if you look at it from one angle, it's sort of a good sign that they're being politicized. Because if you have one side where, like, if half the people in your country think racism is okay, they're not going to be worried about you calling them racist, if you know what I mean. So it's like the very fact that, racism or white supremacy is used as a partisan attack now, it's I think it's sort of proof that it's not something that is generally accepted in society.
Yeah, I mean, even the fascism thing, if you talk to people at Trump rallies and you say, hey, are you a fascist? Very few will say that they're pro-fascism, or that they're, that they believe in some sort of authoritarianism. A lot of them are anti-authoritarian, and do I think maybe they can be misguided in seeing Donald Trump as the sort of savior against authoritarianism? I think that's a little misguided, because I think he acts authoritarian and reckless himself. So that's just my personal opinion. But we can talk about this stuff. And the only way we can talk about this stuff is we just stop labeling each other and ending the conversations before they have the chance to begin. Otherwise, it's going to be political gridlock. It's going to be, more of the same. And I think people are tired of it. And so I hope that, shows like this, thank you everybody for your support. And comment here, these are uncertain times. People do not like uncertainty. I would like more certainty. Thank you for the compliments. Get more video like this. I'm going to do some more video. I found a very interesting video on the topic, one of the more controversial topics out there. I've even told activists I am researching Andy No, and I am looking into whether the claims that get telephoned around, to which a banjo player can lose his job just because he called Andy No's book brave and important, there's something that's not adding up. So I'm looking back at evidence. So more video like this. I will be getting more video like this. And I want to play out long sections that are, a half hour long. I now have a half hour long clip of what is called the Cider Riot in Portland. And it's if you want to talk about Andy No origin stories, I'm learning that this was one of the first instances where the press went against Andy No, the actual local Portland press, based on a story in which an Antifa infiltrator is the main source. So there are problems. If we start looking at things journalistically, you're going to find out that the people who are being demonized, even if they're different than you and are on a different political edge, there might be more to the story. And that's all I'm getting at. I don't have an agenda. And I appreciate you coming on here without one either. And so, spread the word, folks. Let people know that this show is going on. The best way you can do that is subscribe, youtube.com/unblockedlive. This is me on Twitter. Please follow me on YouTube and Twitter. And we're also on Apple Podcast. My guest today has been Stephen Horn. This was a long one, and I think we're both ready for a nap. So I appreciate you hanging in there. Stephen Horn has been our guest, and we'll have to talk again soon, because I enjoyed the conversation. Please spread the word, and I will be having more episodes like this where we play clips out in their fullest. The reason we can do that is this is a non-monetized channel. Because it's non-monetized, it's going to take some extra work from us all to get the word out. There are no ads. I don't make any money off of it, but what I can do is I can play long extended clips in a situation like Steven, who's bringing it aboard. And I certainly respect all video journalists who are willing to do that. But if there is an important clip, I can actually play it under fair use as public information and in the interest of the public. And because it's not monetized, that is not considered stealing. But I prefer this. I prefer journalists to come and say, hey, I have this. So if there are more out there, if there are more people like Steven, please come one, come all. Let's keep having these conversations. Thanks, Stephen Horn, for being our guest on Unblocked Live.
Thank you.